You know that zirconia is becoming more and more popular, and this is why how you insert it, what kind of cement you're using, is extremely important. The APC zirconia bonding protocol means the following. It's air abrasion with aluminum oxide particles as a pre-treatment for the surface. Then you're using a primer, which is the P. It's a special primer that has the ability to bond to metal oxides. And C is the composite. So APC stands for air abrasion, some people say sandblasting, primer, and composite, APC. You know, we have been in dental materials research for over 20 years now. And I'm always was very concerned about aesthetics, implants, ceramics, bonding, new materials, CAD/CAM technologies. These have been our main focus areas of our research. And for about 15 years, we have actually looked into how to bond the zirconia. Because unlike other materials like silica-based ceramics or composites, zirconia is very different the way it behaves and the way we have to handle it. This is why I was always very curious about how we can find the best protocols. So the APC protocol is not something entirely new or revolutionary. It is actually based on all the research we have done over 15 years. And we're talking about tens, thousands actually of specimens that we have looked at to find out which is the best protocol to bond to zirconia. And interestingly, we almost always come up with the exact same protocol, and that is you need to pre-treat the surface as a pre-treatment step, and typically that's the air abrasion step or air particle abrasion step. Some people say sandblasting. We usually use aluminum oxide for that. Then applying a primer, a priming agent on top of that, and followed by a composite resin luting agent, typically dual cure or self-cure. So with all the cements we have tested and all the pre-treatments we have tested, this always has been the quintessential that came out of these studies. And in the meantime, there's actually many groups from around the world who actually support these protocols and find exactly the same results, that from a clinical standpoint, the most applicable is exactly that protocol. So this is nothing new, it's just to give it a name that makes it easier to understand what the steps are entailed. I have to admit, I'm sometimes astonished, if not sometimes a little bit frustrated, to see what the amount of misinformation that's sometimes out there, and the lack of scientific evidence for many of the things we do. So I always find it very important for us, and of course for me, as an academician, educator, researcher, and clinician at the same time, to find the best protocols for us. But also, not just to find these protocols, but how we can get the message across in the best possible way. And what I find many times is, we have done this research for over 15 years now. I published on it extensively. All my presentations around the world, we talk about the same thing. Yet, people come back and always say, but how do you do it? How do you bond zirconia? Oh, I didn't know you could bond to zirconia. So that made me think quite a bit, because obviously we have the information, but the message doesn't come across. You ask any dentist and they can tell you how to bond silica or porcelain ceramics. They know you use acid etchant and you put a silane on top of that. But when you ask about zirconia, which is one of the most used materials now in dentistry, very few people can give you the answer. And then some people give you answers that may not be realistic or relevant or even true. So I really found it very important, with the increased use of zirconia materials now, that we have a message, but the message has to be clear. And I came up with this abbreviation or acronym APC to make it simplified for people to understand what are the critical steps in zirconia bonding. A, air abrasion, P is the primer, and C is the composite. The principles of adhesion to zirconia have actually not changed at all, and as I mentioned before, we actually pretty much always come to a very similar conclusion as what the best interventions would be. What has changed in the meantime, though, is the availability of zirconia materials. And as you all know, zirconia has become such a popular material that many manufacturers now offering different versions of zirconia. And what's quite interesting, of course, we're using zirconia now very successfully in a full contour monolithic version. And some of the latest zirconia materials are the high translucent zirconia materials. But you also have to understand that these high translucent zirconia materials are weaker than the conventional zirconia. Conventional zirconia crowns we can cement with anything you want to. If you have good retention, you have conventional materials, and you can use resin modified glass ionomer cement, you can use self-adhesive resin cements, that's not a problem. However, the weaker the material, the more important it becomes that we use resin bonding to support the ceramic. Zirconia is a ceramic, it's a brittle material, so the more we can support it, the better. And specifically those high translucent, lower strength zirconia versions that we have available now may require better support. And this is why resin bonding becomes more and more important. Also, with zirconia we can use it for a variety of different applications, from crowns, bridges, but also resin bonded bridges. And for resin bonded bridges or veneers, of course, resin bonding is an absolute must. So the protocols have not changed over this time, but the material applications have widened and the material availability has increased tremendously as well. This is why it's more and more important to understand how we have to clinically use these materials. Adhesive dentistry is a tool in our armamentarium to provide our patients with oftentimes better healthcare, because our goal has to be to do as little damage as possible and to help our patients to keep their teeth as long as possible. Of course, we will always have crowns, implants as part of this armamentarium as well. These are important for the more destructive teeth. But what we sometimes have overlooked in the past was that there are other things that are available and possibilities that can prevent the crown, the implant, at least for a certain number of years. And that has been done a lot of times with adhesive dentistry, which does not require any specific retentive preparation that will sacrifice tooth structure. So adhesive dentistry certainly will have its place, even more so because our goal becomes more and more to be less invasive, minimal invasive, as with surgery as well, to really help our patients retain their teeth for as long as possible and do as little damage as possible. So I strongly believe that not only will we continue to do it, no, it will grow exponentially. Just like CAD/CAM and implant dentistry, adhesive dentistry is here to stay. Adhesive dentistry just adds a whole new aspect and a whole new world to our treatment armamentarium. And that is important because not everything is for everybody. And I'm not saying that you have to do it only this way or only that way. It's important that we do the treatment according to the patient's needs. And many of our patients these days want to keep their teeth longer. So this is something where we can use adhesive dentistry. Or for example, when implants are not possible and we have a missing tooth, resin bonded bridges, specifically in the anterior, have worked quite well. And we can use ceramic materials for that, we can use zirconia for that, but we need to understand how to properly bond these materials in place. So adhesive dentistry offers a whole new range of treatment possibilities that would not be possible without resin bonding. My advice for the private practitioner is to make bonding and adhesive dentistry part of your armamentarium to improve patient care, to become a better dentist. For that, it's also important that we follow the protocols as strictly as possible. Because adhesive dentistry, yes, it's complex, it's more time consuming, but in the end of the day, when you see the benefits for your patients to keep their teeth longer, that is great. Some advice though I have when it comes to resin bonding is use it frequently, because we have done some interesting research that shows that the more familiar you are with a certain bonding agent or a certain material, the higher is your success. Use it, but one of the most important things, follow the manufacturer's instructions. I feel that we're sometimes still struggling to make the connection with the scientific world and the clinical world. And with the overabundance of information available, I really feel that it becomes even more complicated. And people, of course, tend to get their information from various sources. I'm really grateful that I got the opportunity to share this information with the readership of Compendium. My advice for you is to make sure you get your information from the proper sources and keep the curiosity so we can move forward, because only together, by combining the clinical excellence with the scientific information, that is what moves our profession forward.